everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of the Pursuit Podcast. My name is Mo, and we decided that this week we would do something a little bit different. As you can tell, we're not in our normal studio setting, and we have more people than normal on the podcast this week. And so we thought, Jimmy Fallon and all the late night shows are doing their at-home editions. We thought, why not do an at-home edition of a podcast? And so my wife Tara and I decided that there would be no better couple to do an at-home podcast with than some of our closest friends, Paul and Karen Harrison. And if you know Paul and Karen, they've been integral parts of the Pursuit since the early days. Yep. And Paul and Karen and us have had the pleasure of knowing each other for a long time, and we've done a lot of life together. And so what we wanted to do this week was we wanted to have a conversation about marriage. And we've led marriage groups together over the years, and you guys have been some of our key marriage mentors at the Pursuit over the years. And so we thought it'd be a lot of fun to have a conversation about marriage. But we wanted to do something fun and different. So there's this thing called Songs in a Mug. Songs in a Mug. And it's famous recording artists. They have a mug, and there's a few questions in there. And they draw a question, and it'll ask something about, for instance, what's the hardest song or the song that took the longest to write? And they would tell a little bit of a story, and then they would sing the song. And so we're not going to punish you with us singing tonight or today, but what we wanted to do is we wanted to have some kind of a similar format, and we're going to call it Questions in a Mug. And so there are several questions in this mug. And we have a general idea of what's in there, but we don't know who's going to get what question. And so we're just going to take turns as couples pulling a question out. And so if you see us fumbling around a little bit, it's because we don't really know yet what we're going to say. But it's going to be a good time and a chance for us to have a great conversation about marriage, the ups, the downs, the easy parts, the hard parts. And so hopefully it'll be a blessing to you as you view this down the road. So, all right, questions in a mug. Who wants to go first? Paul, never afraid.
Never afraid to go first.
Did you know which one that was before you drug it out of there?
No, not yet.
You cheat in games, so I just want to make...
Yeah,
Is this when you're going to ask Mo and Tara?
Do I ask Mo?
No.
This is my question?
Yeah.
Okay.
You shot yourself.
I shot myself. So, what's your favorite God moment as a couple?
Oh, that's great.
That's a good question.
Good start.
Good start.
It's a very good
Jump right
start. I think the one that I think about is we went through a period of time in our lives where we couldn't have children, and once we got pregnant, we ended up losing 3 children. But God showed up one night. We went to a Bible study that some friends asked us to go to. Never met any of these people before other than the couple that we went with. But we had some people pray over us that night, and they told us that we were going to have 2 sons. And guess what? 2 sons. So that God showed up in a really big way after a time of really difficult trials. Whenever you lose babies, there's the hearts are just ripped apart. But God showed up. We have 2 sons, and God has just been a part of that. So
and that just shows you that answered prayer doesn't always come immediately.
Yeah.
Right.
So that answered prayer took about 9 years, probably, for it, or I don't know how many, to actually come to truth. That we knew that was, we had 2 sons, and that was it, and that prayer was answered complete, right?
Yep.
So don't expect prayer to always be answered immediately in your timeline.
Yeah.
How long had you guys been married when you started that journey together? How long had you been together as a couple?
6 or 7 years.
Yeah. Whenever we started trying to have kids, we didn't know if we wanted to have kids. We were young.
Yeah.
It's like, this is just going to screw up our lives.
And now you know.
Yeah. So it took a long time to decide if we wanted to have children or not. But
you guys got married young.
Yeah.
we did.
How old were you guys?
19 and 20.
Yeah. And we were 21 and 22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got married. So, No, that's really a cool story. I've heard you guys share that one a lot over the years, and it's just as cool the 15th time I've heard it as the first time I heard it.
Those are cool.
So,
Those are very cool God moments, though.
Yeah.
Huge faith builders and wonderful ones to hold on to when you're in the in-between that you were talking about. Okay, I'm waiting to see how God's going to show up, but I can remember that this is how he showed up in the past. And I think that's one of the gifts of having that legacy of marriage is you start building those building blocks of faith over the years. And you can look back and remember, this is how he shows up. Okay, he's going to do it again.
Yes.
I think one really key thing to do is journaling. We journaled for our kids.
Yeah.
And as we did that throughout the years, 18 years, and whenever they graduated high school, they went off to college, we gave them their journals. So cool. But you look back in those journals, that's when you truly see the God moments. Is because I forget everything.
Right.
I'm not young anymore.
What?
Yeah, believe it or not.
I can't believe how much gray you have in your beard.
I know. And we forgot to tell everyone our love language is sarcasm.
Oh, yes. That is an important thing for you to know about all four of us. Yes. All right. You ready for this?
Question number 2 in a mug?
Yes.
All right, here we go.
Get the hard one.
Team Wiley.
Get the hard one. Is there a hard one?
Yes.
Here we go. Let's see.
Come on.
Ooh, okay. So the question is, how do you transition to a new season in your marriage?
Mm-hmm.
How do you make those transitions to new seasons? Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think if you've been married for more than just a few years, you've probably already experienced the transition. And sometimes you think of the major life moments, having a kid leaving for college, empty nest, all that. Those are certainly ones. But there are a lot of, I think, other transitions across time that sometimes maybe even be harder. I don't know, depending on the season you find yourself in. So how have we made transitions as a married couple? What do you think? I just set it up and let her have the
Yeah, you
conversation.
did. Yeah,
I mean, I'll help. I promise
thanks.
to
I
help.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. Well, and that's pretty much it. There you go. In a nutshell, what we just saw. Now, I think it's been interesting. One of the things that I love about our relationship is that Mo is an optimist and has a lighthearted approach to challenges, to life in general. And I, when we were walking into the early years of our marriage especially, would get very serious and investigative. And, something's about to happen. We need to prepare for this. And I would read all the books and, all the stuff. And I think one of the things that has always been true for us is when we step into change, and I liked, we were talking about this ahead of time, the word adventure, right? Change is scary, change is hard, transitions are hard. Some you choose, some are thrust upon you, like COVID. That's a transition, right? In our lives, it's huge change. But when you step into it with a sense of, this is a great adventure, and we're going to try our best, and we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to push through, and we're going to laugh, and we're going to find ways to, have that sort of safety valve that brings a little bit of stress relief in the moment. Those have been some key things for us to navigating challenging transitions over time.
Yeah, I think too, how well you communicate with each other when you're not in a transition really determines how well you can move through. And that's any type of adversity, I think. When you get stressed, when life gets crazy, if you've got a good foundation and you have the ability to communicate well with one another, that makes all the difference in the world. I guess when I thought of this question, the last kind of transition that I thought of for us as a married couple was last summer when you began to work full time, and it had been the first time in a long time that you had worked full time outside of the home.
18 years.
And so just thinking back on that transition, and that wasn't I guess maybe that's what I was thinking of. It wasn't became parents, became empty nesters kind of a transition, but still it was a major life change, and figuring out for both of us how to navigate through that new normal, of her working outside the home full time, me working outside the home full time. We happen to work together at the same place, but we rarely see each other through the week because we're just going in a million different directions at a million miles an hour. But figuring out, and oftentimes what came back, if there was, there was, at times, at moments when there was tension, the tension was usually around whether or not we had effectively communicated either expectations or our schedules with each other. And so I think that translates to any kind of a transition, is being able to effectively communicate those expectations. What am I expecting of myself? What am I expecting of you? And then having that conversation as a couple and determining, okay, are those realistic expectations? Are they unrealistic expectations? I think oftentimes, I know for Tara, we may have realistic expectations for us as a couple, but she has a tendency to have an unrealistic expectation on herself and how much she needs to do or press. And so because I am generally the more lighthearted knucklehead of the relationship, you can attest to that, Paul.
Everybody knows.
Yeah, I can say, Tara, you're just dial it back a little bit. Don't take yourself so serious here. We can just have fun. I always spring load towards let's just have some fun though. So, but yeah, but what we've found over the years is that we balance each other very well. Because of that, because she helps me be more serious and actually read a book ahead of time, because eventually everybody needs the knowledge. It's just that I'm like, it'll be fun. Oh geez, what do you mean I have to take this thing home and I don't even know how to use a car seat? Now you want me to drive it home? And anyway, all right, good.
So plan, but also be flexible.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you got to be flexible. You can't.
For sure.
Yeah.
Things are going to happen.
Yep.
Roll with the punches and talk about it.
Yeah.
All right, you're up.
I know which one I don't want.
Get the hard one.
All right. What's your favorite stupid fight story and how did you resolve it?
I'm so glad you guys got this one. This is my favorite.
So this is probably more one that Paul likes to tell than I do anyway.
So you're going to tell it?
I'm going to let Paul tell it.
Okay, she can tell it and I'll correct it.
And that's different in what way?
So he's the storyteller, I'm not. So we'll let you tell.
So there was a time where I remember the road. It was Beaumont Street in Abilene, Texas, behind the mall. And Karen had been working full time. She was working a job sometimes 60, 70 hours a week. And, I kind of got tired of doing laundry, so I started keeping track of the chores that I was doing at home. And I made one huge mistake. It went from here out of here.
Without the pause button.
Without a pause
there was
button.
no pause.
A word that is said can never be taken back. So we had a pretty good discussion. I listened a lot.
I talked a lot.
She talked a lot. And
Paul, tell us what you said.
I don't remember. It's compartmentalized because guys can do that. So I just put it in one of my compartments.
Ask me what he said.
The nothing box.
Karen, what did Paul say?
He basically said he's been doing all the laundry and he didn't appreciate it, and that I hadn't been doing it. He actually gave me a number of how much laundry he'd done.
You were well prepared for this conversation, Paul.
I
Except
wasn't.
for the response.
I was not
What
prepared.
was about to happen?
No.
But what it does do for us is it allows us to think about what's important in the different roles that we're playing in our family at the moment. She was working a lot of hours.
Yeah.
I was working just my basic 40 hours a week-ish, and I had more time. And that was one of the things. It's like you have to discuss these things up front as a couple. It's like, what are some of our roles and our responsibilities?
Yeah.
And in 3 days, that's going to change because you're going to have a different role and different responsibilities.
Yeah, maybe.
But you have to talk about things when you're in a good place.
Yes.
Don't wait until you're angry to bring up something. Talk about it when you're in a good place.
And just know, women keep a list. We don't always speak it, but we have a list.
Uh-oh.
So, so Paul got the list that
I did.
So how did you resolve this conflict, or do you still need some help?
The conflict is resolved. But the thing is I don't think about what I do anymore. I just do what's next. And
We both do.
we
that.
do, we
Yeah,
both
don't
do.
keep
Yeah.
tabs.
We don't keep
We don't-
tabs.
yeah.
And we just do, we see if something needs to be done in the house and we have time to do it, we do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're not leaving it for our spouse to see it and do it.
Yeah.
And so that works, right now, that works well for us. And
Yeah.
I think that kind of helped at that point in time.
Yeah.
We always just kind of bring up, are you making a list? It's kind of our little reminder. Are you making that list, or are you just willing to step in and do what needs to get
Yeah.
done?
Well, I think it's that whole thing too, that marriage concept of you're a team together
Right.
rather than in competition
Yeah.
with one another. And that's a critical conflict. It not only for conflict resolution, but to avoid unnecessary conflict. To remember, we're in this together.
Yes.
This isn't a competition.
Right.
Yeah, it reminds me of the book that we've actually used in group together before, called "From This Day Forward" by
Yes.
Craig Rochelle,
Good one.
and he talks
My
about
favorite.
and he talks about in the conflict resolution chapter. The thing that's always stuck out to me is unhealthy couples fight to win. Healthy couples fight for resolution.
Right.
And I think that the difference is when you're fighting to win, it's really easy for that to become a very selfish,
Yes.
me-centric kind of approach to a conflict versus when you fight for resolution, it's a we-centric. Like, we're coming together, we are going to figure this thing out. We may not have the answer right now. We may not like each other right now.
Yes.
I love you. I don't like you.
Oh.
We've all had that moment in marriage. But fighting for resolution will always land your marriage you will always move forward through a fight and not move backwards
Agreed.
from a fight.
I do have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
So who can win any argument between you and Tara?
Oh, I can.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
But do you really win?
No. Yeah, there's a saying, if you win enough fights, you'll lose the marriage.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah, I had a mentor early on in our marriage. We were blessed to have a couple, Ed and June Gifford, who came alongside. They were about our parents' age, and we just did life together with them for our last couple of years of college as a young married couple. And Ed pulled me aside one night, and he's like, "Do you see when you kind of, shoot Tara down like that, do you see what it does to her?" And I was like, "No, I mean, I was just a dumb kid. I didn't really know what I was doing." And he said, "Yeah, you're just shutting her down. And that's not the way you want to treat your wife."
Right.
And I took that to heart, thankfully. And that was a revolutionary moment, I think, for our marriage. Was that, the last thing I would want to do in our marriage is cut the legs out from under my spouse or belittle her or whatever. And so even though it was in my mind, I'm just competitive. I'm going to win this argument. But he made me see, you can win that argument, buddy,
Yep.
but you're going to lose a lot more. You're going to do a lot of damage in what you think is a victory. It's really not.
Yes.
So great advice that I got from
And
my
there's
friend
grace,
Ed.
right? I mean, we all have those weak spots, right? And even though we may recognize them and are pushing through and growing and learning, there's still going to be those moments that we're gonna default to our weakness, and we get the opportunity to step in and give grace because every one of us needs it.
Yep.
It's a huge.
One other thing off of what you said, just real quick, find a couple
Yes.
that is, older or more mature and has been married a while, that you can do life with for those types of moments,
Yeah.
for those kind of insights that aren't afraid to kind of tell you, are you recognizing that this is happening, and to help you with your marriage. So,
Yeah, that's been, over the years for us, that's been one of, if people ask what was the secret to your marriage, there are a few, but one of them certainly was, we had a godly couple model a good marriage in front of us as we did life together. And they took the mentoring that we didn't ask for it. We weren't even necessarily
it's
looking
just part
for
of
it.
living life.
But man, the amount of wisdom and knowledge that they fed into us, that they poured into us over those 2 years, has paid huge dividends over the last 24.
Yeah.
So it's been great. So, and it's been fun. I know you guys have probably experienced this too. You probably had those mentor couples, and then there's this cool transition where you suddenly find yourself becoming the
On the
mentor
other side of
couple.
that table.
And it's just as much fun, and
Yes.
and I know
And
that
it keeps you fresh too.
yeah, for sure, and it motivates. I know it motivates us. Because we saw such great value, and it really motivates us to search out those couples that we want to invest into, or couples that come and ask questions. We love spending time doing
Yes.
that, and I know you guys do
We
too.
do too.
Yep.
You've opened your home up
Yeah.
nonstop over
Yeah.
the years.
Yeah.
Long time.
We love doing that. It's been great.
All right,
We better get on.
okay, it's your turn.
It is?
Yes.
Don't
Oh,
let us
boy.
down. Don't let us
Get the
down.
good question.
Don't let us
Good
down.
question. I want a good question. I want
Get
a
the
good
hard
question.
one.
Can't look.
Hard
Good one.
question.
Good one. Good one. It is. Oh, yay.
What is it?
We need a little levity after the conflict question.
Yeah.
What's the quirkiest thing you do as a couple?
There are probably many.
There
things.
are many. We are
Yeah.
very quirky.
Yeah.
And I love that about us. I do. I love that about us. No, so all the way back, I mean, this started when we were dating.
I'm afraid to know what you're about to say.
No, I don't even know what started it, but we'll get into this little banter where someone will say a sentence and then the next person has to say a sentence that rhymes with that one. And then you just keep going until you get to the point where someone can't think of a rhyme anymore. And it's silly and, I don't know, quirky, but it's just, I don't know. It's just kind of a fun, silly thing we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. We're quirky like
We're
that.
quirky.
You
What
are
can I say?
quirky.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
like that about you?
We're not quirky. Next question.
Lame.
But you own more game consoles than anyone I know.
Well, that could be. We have
For
a
a
lot of-
couple in your mid 90s, they play a lot of video games, Paul.
So the deal is, there is a term for people like us.
Oh,
Yes.
I haven't heard it.
Yeah.
Yes.
We
You
are
have.
legacy gamers.
Legacy gamers.
Legacy
Yeah.
gamers.
I like it.
The first time we heard that, we were shopping for a game.
And somebody told you.
And no, and the guy says, "Oh, is that for your kids?" No, it's for us. Oh,
You're one of them?
You're one of them. You're a legacy gamer.
Did it take a picture with your
No.
A legacy
He's
gamer
seen them
sighting?
before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like a wild animal. He's seen them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our goal would be still to be playing games in our 90s mode.
Yeah.
that'd be good.
That's a goal
Yeah.
for us.
Well,
Yeah.
and that does tell you what we do a lot is we play a lot of board games
do.
together. It's
We've
just
spent
not the
an
video
awful
game.
lot of hours around this table
Yes,
over
yes.
the last
We have.
however many years
Yeah.
playing games
And really,
Picking on each other
Yes.
mostly.
Mo, he'll send me a text and say, "Hey, you want to play?" And I know what that means. That means to jump on the Xbox and
Yeah.
play a game of Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Every now and again.
every now and again,
Our
Well, and it
my
is-
son just shows us how it's done.
Yes.
Nice.
that is true.
Nice.
Yeah. We help the other team a lot.
Yeah. Somebody's got to die.
We've actually resolved a lot of conflict around this table.
Yes.
There was a moment in very recent history when
Was it
Paul
around
and Karen
Christmas?
walked to the. No, I'm thinking last night.
That's a different one.
That's a different
I'm
one.
not ready to go there.
I'm not either. I shouldn't have said
Where's
anything.
the safe chair?
Lord, erase that one.
What's wrong with you?
Too much pressure.
Sometimes we do too much life together.
We
were you
obviously
gonna say?
resolved that one.
No, we did. We did resolve
What were you going
that
to say,
one.
Tara?
No,
Sorry,
I was.
please bail us
We
out.
were in the middle of a fight.
No.
We had already
Us?
agreed
Yeah.
that they were coming over for dinner and
Yep.
games, and they came over, and I don't think you guys were in the world's best place
No.
either.
No.
Nope.
And so we just sat around, and it's guys against girls, so you get a chance to kill
Yes.
your spouse
Yes,
it's
with
true.
the game that we're
Sometimes
playing.
it's therapeutic.
Sometimes
It's
it
very
is.
therapeutic.
So we play it an awful lot.
Need a lot of therapy.
We need a lot of therapy.
You
Need a lot
know.
of therapy.
It does. Games are great, and they are
For
a
the
way to
soul.
get out some I don't know, just
and
have fun and just
reconnect and laugh and remember why it is you enjoy spending time with each other.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time. There's more questions
man.
in the mug, but I guess we'll save some of those for
And we'll have to do
another
round 2.
episode
Round
maybe
2.
in the future here. But
Okay.
I didn't prep you guys for this, which is fun. So
Great.
I love putting you on the spot. No, I thought as we close, just quickly, if you could share one piece of advice, marriage advice, and especially as we find ourselves in kind of this crazy season of, I think every married couple's figuring out a different way to do life, working from home, kids are home during school, like all the things that we've seen over the last couple months here. What would be a piece of advice that you would give a young married couple in general, from your perspective of some years and wisdom?
Okay, so yeah, Karen and I, we've done a lot of marriage mentoring, and I think that one of the biggest pieces of advice that we could give anyone is, if you think there's something wrong, talk about it. Because there are so many times it just doesn't feel right. I don't know what's going on. If you don't, talk about it. If your spouse doesn't want to talk about it, find another couple that you can talk to that can help kind of, ask some probing questions about your marriage. But if you think there's something going on or a funk, get some help. I mean, that's why we're here. We come alongside people every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be my biggest piece of advice. If I think it, well, let me ask her.
Yeah.
If I don't get anything, let's see if we can meet with somebody else that's got some experience.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think so much of any relationship, but certainly a marriage relationship, goes back to communication.
Yep.
How
Yep.
how effectively you can communicate, and having a place and developing a way that you can approach each other, and have those hard conversations. Because it's sometimes those are just hard conversations to have, and but yeah, keeping short accounts, not letting that stuff build up over time. Is so important. So great.
Mine would be, because there's so many of those 5 things from Craig Rochelle's, from this day forward. If you need a place to start, just go get the book, watch the video.
Yep.
That'll give you a good place to start, because it gives you 5 really practical things to do in your marriage.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, I would be remiss not to plug community groups.
Yes.
Sure. We've spent, in fact, that's how we met you guys.
That's how we met.
Was a
They
community
took
group.
the 2 quirky couples that they
Yeah.
didn't know what to do
Yes.
with, and they threw them together into a group.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so
And
I
here
think,
we are.
yeah, I think, you'll find lifelong relationships in community groups.
That's
and
true.
you'll find that becomes the place where you can go to have those conversations.
That's true.
You develop a relationship with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 other couples, where you can do that, and where they can be your person and you can be their person.
True.
When life gets hard.
Yep.
And we all know that life gets hard at times.
Yes, it does.
And so, so encouraging to have other couples that you trust and know that can come alongside you in the good times and the bad. So, great. Well, guys, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you.
I know outside your comfort zone a little bit, maybe,
Yes.
to sit in front of the lights and the camera here, but I knew that we would manage to have fun. No matter what.
Well, we're going to have
So thanks so much for coming on the podcast with us tonight. Thanks so much for all you do for the Pursuit and for all that you've done for all the couples that you've invested into over the years. So, with that, we will catch you guys next week. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, you can always email us at hello@thepursuit.church. We'd love to hear your questions and answer them. And if you've got ideas, if you'd like to hear something that you'd like for somebody from the Pursuit to talk about, just a question you've got on your mind, we're always looking for ideas for what we can do in these podcasts. And so please send those to hello@thepursuit.church. You can also always check us out either on Facebook or on our website at thepursuit.church. So thank you so much. Have a great week, and we will see you guys next week with another podcast.